Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we've got some welding content. More specifically, we've got some welding equipment content. So today what we're going to do is unbox and do a brief review on a Miller Multimatic 220 AC/DC multi-process machine. So it's brand new in the box. We're going to take it out of the box, go through all the parts and pieces of it. We're going to see how the machine works, both on 120 power and on 220, and just talk about everything that comes with the machine and see if it's the right purchase for you. Without further ado, let's get to it. So I've got everything from the box laid out here on the table. The first thing I want to go over, and maybe because I'm kind of a stickler for packing, Miller's packing is exceptional. In terms of the materials that is used to pack, the cardboard was nice and thick. Even the plastic that they use is good, thick, and durable. Most everything is individually wrapped. Even the TIG torch was, was snug down in there. You didn't see me take it out on that first clip. Everything was just packed in there very neatly, very tidy. Nothing seemed jammed in there. Everything kind of had a spot. So first and foremost, excellent job on the packing. That needs to be commended. Kind of everybody's first experience with anything is how it's packaged. So how it's packaged is extraordinarily important, especially when you pay this much money for a piece of equipment. It should get here in one piece regardless of the carrier. Obviously we want our carriers to hold up their end of the deal, but that's not always the case. So there's a lot of stuff on the table here to go over. The first thing that everybody should go over, and you can rest assured that I did too, is your instruction manuals. So regardless of whether or not you personally go through every instruction manual, that's completely up to you. I don't know anybody who does. But I do appreciate that everything has its own instruction manual, even down to the regulators. So we've got the regulators, we've got the TIG torch, we've got the MIG gun, we've got the foot pedal, and then the machine itself. So everything has a service manual. So here, after we get done with the video and kind of the unboxing, and kind of like a kid on Christmas, we got to play with it a little bit first before we go through the manuals. But everything has a hard copy manual. I like seeing that instead of a digital copy that you can find online. I don't have to go searching for it. I want a physical copy. I don't have to go print it off myself. So I appreciate that they've got that for us. Now, in terms of where to start, there's a lot of options. So we're just going to start down here at this end and work our way over. So first and foremost, the regulators, brass. They seem decent quality. They've got a little weight to them. All the parts on them seem to be metal. All the fixtures are covered, so dust and debris don't get in there during shipping or storage. Everything is extraordinarily clean. It was all packaged up, like I said, really, really well. Time will tell on the regulators. Comes with the hoses that you will need, even down to the clamps to go over the barbed fittings. So that's all there and ready to go. Again, there's a lot of thoughtfulness going on. We've got some cable management systems, so once you get it on a cart, you can get your cables all secured. Appreciate that. It comes with some 030 wire from Hobart. Hobart is made by Miller, if you didn't know. Inside the machine, which I've got down here, comes your 120 option. So you can plug in 120 or 240. And that's done with this adapter here. You just unthread this collar, disconnect whichever one you're not using. It actually comes with a pretty nice, again, lots of thoughtfulness going on, a nice little protector. So whichever one you're not using doesn't get lost or damaged, keeps it protected. So you just get this indexed correctly. Once you find the arrows, there's two arrows that help you line it up. You push it together, you thread it on, and it locks in. and then you're ready to weld on 120. Moving on to the TIG consumables, the TIG torch, just your standard 17. Surprisingly enough, it does have a flex head on it. That was certainly not something I was expecting. Maybe I didn't see that in the, maybe I just didn't see that in the description, but it does come with a flex head. Not like some of the cheaper flex heads that I've used in the past that just feel like they're gonna fall apart. This is pretty rigid. But not rigid enough that you just can't move it over. Everything seems to be in good order here. Nothing crazy over the top. Time will tell on how good the TIG torch is, but it comes with tungsten already in it. So we'll get to playing with that later on. Comes with just your normal standard TIG consumables. Nothing crazy over the top there. I do appreciate that it does come with some tungsten, so you don't need to run out right away and go get that. In the bag that the regulators came in does come with some wrenches, so you can figure out a way to get those permanently fixed to your cart, and that way you'll always have wrenches to do your bottles with. It does come with some extra contact tips, and lo and behold, they're actually the same size as the wire that they give you. A little material gauge thickness, so if maybe you're new and aren't super familiar with thicknesses, this might help you figure out what you're dealing with, especially with the auto set feature of this machine. Everything's run off thickness, so having this would be a huge plus. Another thing, you might want to find a spot for it on your machine so it's always there. Moving on now to the MIG gun. Really heavy duty. I haven't taken the zip ties off, but really heavy duty in terms of a non-designated MIG, something like a 252 Multimatic machine. Really nice, high quality. It seems so far. All of the hoses, whether it be the TIG torch, the power cable on the back of the machine, this MIG gun, and the other things that we're about to get to over here. All of the cables and hoses are really nice feeling. They're not super brittle. It's pretty chilly here. It's somewhere high 40s, low 50s, and some cheaper machines that I've used in the past. That's kind of the point where stuff starts to get brittle. It starts to kind of get tough to work with, like old crappy extension cords that we've all dealt with. Really nice spring to help keep everything straight, keep your wire feeding good. So again, the proof will be in the pudding when we put it in service. Then we've got our stick electrode holder here. Like I said, cables are really nice and flexible. They're 4 gauge, plenty long enough to do what we need to do. We've got our foot pedal here. Foot pedal is good and heavy, which I appreciate. If you've ever used a foot pedal before, that maybe it was a kind of a cheapo depot one that you bought, having something with a little bit of weight to it is nice. It's counterintuitive. Everything nowadays, we want it to be as light as possible and as small as possible. When it comes to foot pedals, me personally, I like something that's a little bit heavier, so that way if I'm doing a little work and maybe I need to get out of position just a little bit, I don't want my foot pedal when I'm TIG welding to be sliding across the ground. Good and durable. It's got a texture to the top of it. We'll see how accurate it is, and we'll see how small of increments we can do. You can see on the bottom here, it does have this sticker that says it was tested. I appreciate that they've got some quality control going on. And last but not least, because all of us are guilty of trying to weld without a ground at one point or another, our ground cable, again, 4 gauge, nothing to write home about. Good, high quality cable and decent ground clamp. Got plenty of tension. All the fasteners and everything are tight. So far, so good. In terms of the quality of the parts and pieces that I'm seeing, I'm very impressed. The other thing I'm impressed with is everything that came out of that box is everything other than a welding helmet and some material that we're going to need to get started welding. So we're going to get some stuff moved over, get all this stuff hooked up, and we'll go from there and start welding with this baby. And with that, we're ready to go. With the exception of the TIG torch and the foot pedal, everything is all put together and ready to weld. Everything went together exactly how I would hope a brand new machine would go together. The one thing I did discover is that this power adapter block actually does have a spot here in the machine. There was some double-sided sticky tape on it that I didn't appreciate at first. That's stuck down here in the machine now, so it's not going anywhere. All went together great. If you've never put a machine together before, one thing of note when we're talking about our gas system, all of the fittings on the gas system are brass, so they don't need any Teflon tape. Just get them good and snug. Take some soapy water, spray those connections down, make sure they don't have any big bubbles, and you should be ready to go. Like I said, everything went together great. Very happy with it so far. We're gonna get this little Harbor Freight welding table that I picked up just for temporary use. We're gonna get that put together real quick, and then we're gonna put this thing through its paces on some welding. All right, so now that we've got our machine plugged in and turned on, I want to briefly go over the interface of the machine. A couple things to start off with. I really like that when you plug the machine in, it automatically detects whether it's plugged in on 120 power or on 240. So there's nothing that you have to go through and adjust there. The other thing that I'm liking is this guard cover that goes over your digital display. Just keeps that display nice and protected, and you can replace those as you need to. The last thing I want to talk about is just the simplicity of the interface. There's not a whole lot going on over here on the left-hand side. We've got all of our different processes, and you just use these two buttons there to toggle through them. Up here at the top, we've got our auto set on or off, so you can just turn the auto set off completely, and you've got kind of your more standard machine. You've got these knobs that you can adjust up or down your amperage, your wire speed, depending on which process you're in. You can adjust your dig function here on the stick. You can turn your auto set back on using the left plus and minus sign. You can adjust the rod that you're using. Over here on the right, you can use these two to adjust your material thickness that you're welding on. Within each auto set, it gives you this little range that you can work in. So you can come all the way down to the bottom end of the range. You can go all the way up to the top end of the range within each auto set. There seems to be a lot of memory within the machine. So if you set, if I turn the auto set off on stick welding and then go back up to, let's say I was TIG welding aluminum, it's going to keep my auto set on here, but when I bounce back to stick welding, my auto set automatically turns off, and it's keeping the memory of where it was last. So a nice little thing if you're welding a bunch of different things, or if you've got multiple people working on multiple projects at the same time, a pretty nice feature to have. So without further ado, let's get into some welding. So I've got my material here ready to go. I've gone through and I've taken a flap disc and I've made a nice grounding surface here on our table, as well as where I've got the ground connected. I haven't gone through and haven't cleaned any of the mill scale off. I want to be as realistic as possible. Generally when I'm stick welding or MIG welding, I don't generally go through and clean off all the mill scale unless I'm doing something that I'm particularly wanting really good penetration on. So this is going to be the most realistic test. I've got the machine on auto set, so we're going to see how these settings work. So right off the get-go, we have blown a breaker. So I'm going to check that real quick, make sure I have everything set up correctly, and we're going to go from there. All right, so I tried it one more time, got the same result. Now I've got it on an extension cord to a different circuit in the house to see if maybe just that breaker is going out. So we're going to try it again and let's see what happens. All right, so you can probably hear behind me that the fan on the machine is running. But in terms of it welds, great. I'm very happy with that result. So there must be just something wrong with that particular breaker. So we'll get that looked at and changed out. but everything is running great. Plenty of penetration on that weld, very happy with that. What I want to do now is I'm going to run just a couple more beads. I think the amperage is right on the money. Run a couple more beads, see how she performs, and then we're going to switch to 240, run a couple more beads, and see if I can tell much of a difference between the beads. All right, so I've got the machine hooked up on 230, the same setting as before, so in theory, these welds should look exactly the same. So I'm gonna do my best to stay consistent, but we're gonna see what happens. All right, and that is our third weld done on 240 volts. So we're gonna get these welds cleaned up. We'll take a look at them side by side. So when we look at these welds side by side, I would say the biggest difference is really in our starts. So if you look at our three here that we did on 120, you can see how they're just a little bit proud, a little bit crowned up, versus when we look at our starts on our 240 input, they're much flatter, much more dug in there. But after that, it is really hard to pick out much of a difference, if any, outside of the differences in my welding, just not paying attention exactly, perfectly, kind of listening to the sound of the machine, hearing if I can tell any difference. I will say I think the fan noise is louder when we got the 240 on. But realistically, I'm very impressed for being maxed out on the 120 to being, towards the lower end of the range on the 240. I'm very impressed with the consistency. I don't think there's a lot of funny business going on, to be frank. Especially when you consider that on the 120, I've got it run off of a 50-foot extension cord. I think that says a lot about the machine, a lot about the quality of the machine. So far, I am very, very impressed. So now we're ready to MIG. Instead of 3 passes, I'm just going to do 2 for the MIG. One of the things you'll notice is that I'm not going to do a bunch of motion with this. I'm just going to do a slight push and pull like I did with the stick welding, just to keep it as consistent as possible between beads as well as between the 2 different voltage inputs. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I went through and real lightly brushed this off with a flap disc. There was a little bit of rust on this side. So we're just going to go through and see how the auto set works. I generally don't like factory settings, kind of the sticker on the inside of the machine. I generally don't like those, but we're going to see how this one does. So that is our 240 side, or 240 welds rather. That's those done. As far as the auto set goes, kind of what I expected. Kind of the big caterpillar looking bead. You get that with pretty much all machines, or at least I do, when you use their factory settings. But in terms of penetration, in terms of weld consistency, it looks great. So we'll flip it over to 120 and see if we get the same results. So I've got the machine switched over to 120 volts. Just the same as before, it brought me right back to the same screen with the same rod thickness and the same material thickness. So it does seem like there's some memory there for that. So we're gonna go ahead and put some more beads down and let's compare the two. So you can definitely tell there are some heat differences between the two. Not a make or break deal, honestly, for me. I think so long as you understand your machine, it's not the end of the world, but definitely a much bigger difference than we saw with the stick welding. All right, so our machine is set up with 120. Still, we didn't swap it over, so we still got 120 voltage coming in. We're set up for TIG now. I've got the foot pedal down here on the ground. You went ahead and sharpened up our tungsten. That's the 3/32 that came in the torch itself. And then I've got some 1/16 filler rod. I went ahead and got this 1/8 material all bright and shiny and ready to go. All cleaned up, our gas is on. So this is the 120 test, and we're gonna see how it goes. All right, so here in the beginning, I didn't have the foot pedal all the way down to the floor. About an inch in, I went ahead and hammered it. I was really just paying more attention to how the arc was behaving, honestly. Wasn't really paying attention to my weld puddle at all. But once I went ahead and hammered down, I mean, we're getting plenty of penetration on the 120 volt input. You can see my heat affected zone out here. I'm getting plenty of heat into this torch. So let's go ahead and swap it over to 240 and see what the differences are. All right, and once again, we have got the machine back in 240. It kept all of our settings the same, which is great, so we don't have to mess with anything else. We're gonna go ahead and run one more bead next to this and see how we do on 240. All right, well, the biggest thing I've learned here is that I need to really practice my TIG welding. I don't see really any differences. I didn't really notice any differences when I was welding. The power was all there, just the same. I think it's about identical to what we experienced on the 120. Okay, so the last process that we're gonna do is TIG welding aluminum, so AC TIG. To keep it fair between the 120 and the 240, I've gotten two pieces of identical tungsten, so the same tungsten that comes in the machine, the gray. I've got them both ground at 30 degrees and flattened, which is what I generally like to do with my tungsten when I'm welding on AC. So to keep everything fair and the same, so that way they're not starting, one starting with a fresh tungsten, one starting with a bald tungsten. I've got it as fair as I can possibly make it. So we're still welding on 240. We're trying to switch it as least as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and TIG weld some aluminum. All right, and no surprises. Definitely plenty of penetration there. Gonna be kind of hard to pick up on the camera, but I'm really liking the sheen that the weld has right after. It means it's getting plenty of shielding gas, so those regulators are doing a great job of keeping gas coverage down. It's also got a really good AC balance, meaning the difference between AC positive and AC negative. The relationship there is really good. So I'm excited to see how it does on 120. So we're gonna get that flipped over and do this last weld. All right, ready to do our last weld. I've got my brand new tungsten here in the torch. And I'm even gonna flip my rod to the other end to a nice clean edge. We're gonna do one more weld. Let's see how it goes. All right, and once again, just like the stick welding, really not a whole lot of differences in terms of my heat input. I had all the amperage that I needed, and nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is at the top end of the machine. This is as high as it will go on AC TIG, and I think I had even a little bit of pedal left. So yeah, all in all, very impressed. If you made it here to the end of the video, I want to first of all thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate that you come here to watch this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Trying to get the channel up off the ground. Your support means everything. I want to hit on 4 things on this machine that I think need to be addressed. They're not huge things, but I think they do need to be talked about. The first is the MIG gun lead. The MIG gun itself is phenomenal. MIG gun lead, however, is 3 feet too short. So when you stretch this MIG gun out, it's just under 10 feet. Whereas if you stretch either the stick lead or the TIG lead, they're just over 13 feet. So I think you just need to add 3 feet to this and then it's phenomenal. The TIG torch. My TIG torch, the handle is just too loose. This very well might be an isolated incident, but if you're trying to manipulate your torch and you're getting a lot of resistance, you're not gonna have a good time if you have this problem. It can be easily fixed with some super glue or Gorilla Glue to get that from rotating, but you shouldn't have to do that. Might be an isolated incident, but I just wanted to mention it. Third thing is the regulator hoses. The regulator hoses on one end are phenomenal. They have crimped brass fittings. This end, however, relies on a barbed fitting and a clamp to keep your gas from just filling up your garage or your shop and just throwing money away. So, small thing, but for me, that needs to be changed. The fourth and final thing is the cover. As you can see, it doesn't come with the cover. Miller does make one, it just doesn't come with the machine. I think if they had thrown that in the box, that would have really done it for me, put it over the top. At the time of this video, this machine costs $4,200. I think it should come with a cover for that cost. Now, with all those icky things out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the machine. The rest of the machine, I think, is phenomenal. And from all the parts and pieces of it, the little attention to detail in the screen protector, the spot to keep your different power adapters, the rollers, the quality of everything is just all there. The machine itself is under 60 pounds, so you can pick it up and you can move it around by yourself if you work by yourself a lot like I do. But it's not light enough that you're going to accidentally knock the thing over. It's a good happy medium for me. Between 120 and 240, I think the machine welded great. I think the differences there were really minimal, especially considering I ran it off an extension cord for the duration of my testing. I'm not gonna lie, I got real nervous when we did that first arc shot and it popped that breaker. I got real nervous. Turns out it was just my particular breaker. Haven't had any issues since. In terms of the MIG, I think the MIG performed exactly how I would expect it to based on the auto set. Going off a chart, it welds pretty much like every other welder I've used. The TIG is phenomenal. The arc quality is just all there. In my opinion, Miller makes some of the best arcs out there. And then the stick is just a nice clean stick. Like I said, really nice, crisp, clean arc. The question comes down to, should you buy this machine? If you are looking for a machine that's going to take up one footprint in your garage or in your shop, that's going to do everything that you need it to do, you can pretty much weld anything with this machine, I think it fits the bill. The biggest thing for me is just the simplicity of the operation. So if I have somebody who I'm trying to teach, I'm a welding instructor. If you're trying to teach somebody, having something simple for them to learn on is extraordinarily helpful. So family members or friends who want to learn, I can throw them on this machine and they're going to be able to figure it out so long as they know the thickness of the material that they're welding on and what they're welding with. And with the included gauge, that shouldn't be a problem. For me, it's a 4.8 out of 5 stars. If the biggest thing to me is extending this MIG gun. If we extended that out 3 feet, and added the cover, for me, I'd be there. The TIG torch is probably an isolated incident, and 20 bucks to replace the hoses is no big deal. I'm extraordinarily happy with this machine. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please get down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer any of those questions or look at something that maybe I didn't touch on. If you have any future video requests, please throw those down there too. Remember that a jack of all trades is a master of none, but still always better than a master of one. Have a wonderful day.